updates on the coronavirus, and my apologies for the streaming issues. I'm not a streamer. I'm going to try and deliver this information to you best as I can. That is a kind of a disclaimer if you're watching this, so don't trash it if it's not 100%. Doing my best. So, Italy. Towns in lockdown. South Korea declares highest alert. These are the big ones, right? Italy's got a major problem on their hands, and South Korea as well. South Korea, it kind of started where the church was. Somebody from this church went and got tested, and yeah, they unfortunately were positive, and it is now showing that many people in this church are positive, and surrounding as well, and they have deaths taking place pretty quick, right? It's fast moving, and Italy, that's like these small towns in Italy, I don't know what's going on there. I think maybe, again, like probably a super spreading event. Anyways, yeah, several Italian towns have taken urgent measures to stop the virus from spreading following the deaths of 2 people and 80 confirmed infections. Wow. Those are like towns. Those aren't like cities. South Korea is also taking unprecedented steps after a further spike in cases. Yeah, it's big, right? The Italian government on Saturday said it was considering extraordinary measures to fight the following. Yeah, you'd have to take extraordinary measures for sure. Oh wow. And these little towns in Italy, they wouldn't have big, 80 cases. Wow. That there would already break their healthcare system. I'm sure it would in these small little towns. Oh, it would have to. The death of a 75-year-old woman on Saturday near the small town of Lombardy came after, yeah, a 78-year-old man succumbed to the virus as well in a neighboring region. Yeah, the first death in Italy. Of course they're going to be the older ones. If and it all depends. Where this is at, right? But obviously it's rearing its ugly head. It's not good. Growing cluster of cases. Cluster was located in a handful of small towns in the Lombardy region, according to a head of regional health. So this is a handful of small towns, and like they got like a cluster of these outbreaks in these small towns. It would go through there like wildfire, right? Because everybody's pretty traditional in these places. It's a close-knit communities. They probably are, very, very interactive. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing, how this can spread so fast and just pop up anywhere, right? This can happen anywhere at any moment. It really can. You just don't know, right? All of a sudden, it's just, and then, an outbreak, right? There's a 38-year-old now hospitalized in critical condition. His wife and a friend of his have also tested positive for the coronavirus. So his wife and his friend aren't, must not be severe cases, but he is hospitalized, so he must be severe, and he's only 38 years old. And his wife and his friend both test positive. Yeah. Tests were being administered on the 38-year-old's doctor, who paid him a home visit as well. Wow. On 120 people here had worked with at the research development branch in the town. Wow. So they're testing the doctor as well. Because the doctor was at his home, and oh my god, he would have got it. The doctor would have got it. Went right into his house when this guy... And that's how it is there, right? It's a small town. The doctor would go to the house, right? They still do that in those kind of places. So the doctor goes there to the house and checks in on him, checks in on the wife, checks in on, probably like, hey doctor, he's upstairs, fuck or whatever, it's, oh my god, he would have got it. Even if, because he wouldn't have been taking probably the utmost precautions, thinking in a small town like that, right? goes in there, and now he's infected, and he goes and checks out another 100. Oh, wow. Just wildfire, right? Unbelievable. 3 patients in the hospital where he went with flu-like symptoms earlier this week have also been infected, as have 5 nurses and doctors. Wow. And these are small towns. Like, look at these places. They're like close knit, right? The empty streets in the town of Congdo near Lodi. After officials, oh wow. You know, that's what it does. It just turns things into a ghost town. And this is like a small little place, right? In Italy. Unreal. Everybody there is probably like, oh my fuck, oh my god, eh? You never know these small little towns, right? Because they have international travelers that come to these places. They're nice and quaint, and you know, if somebody could. Oh my fuck. We're seeing how this is working, right? I guarantee you, we're gonna hear very soon that the World Health Organization is going to announce a pandemic. What's today? Sunday? Yeah, they probably won't do an update today, or they might, because they didn't do one yesterday. Like, we're supposed to get ones every day, or the day before. I don't think. Yeah, it's happening, and it's happening everywhere, and it can happen anywhere right now. South Korea declares red alert. South Korean President Moon Jae-in announced on Sunday that the country has raised its alert over the coronavirus to the highest level. Said the government would strengthen its overall emergency response of its red alert. Fuck. Like, I didn't want to be right on this. Fuck no. Who wants to be right on this? An announcement comes after a county reported more than 2 deaths from the coronavirus and 123 new cases on Sunday, bringing the total to 556. I think they detected their first case on Tuesday or Monday or something, and then it just like fucking by Sunday it's 556. And you got to realize it takes like 3 days. 3 days to do a test. It really does. Let's watch this little news clip. I got queued up for you here. This is before all the really big stuff went down. This is out of the Philippines, and this is a local broadcast, and this is a guy boasting about Philippines' capabilities to test for this, but he's given out some really key information, and most notably, he mentions a 72-hour turnaround time to test this. So it's about 3 minutes. 3 minutes of your time.
Have their ability to start detecting the virus on their own.
What is an assay protocol?
An assay is like how to put together a test that will identify the target virus. The first that they did is they actually released the entire whole genome sequence of the virus for public. So once you have that sequence, it will allow you to design molecular probes. It's about something that picks up those viruses.
It's like a gene map?
Yes, like that. So it gets mapped out
For that virus.
For that virus, and you get to identify unique regions that will differentiate the novel coronavirus from the previous coronaviruses like SARS and MERS-CoV. So those sequences are already available in public, and we was able to access them as soon as it was actually made available. The other good thing there is the World Health Organization also released platforms for assay that has been validated by bigger centers across the globe and have contributed those assays publicly. The difference is in some countries they can do it on their own in their own laboratories. Unfortunately, in areas with are financially challenged laboratory-wise, like the Philippines, it would require facilities that can actually do scaling up. No? Fortunately for us, the government has invested millions of pesos building the Philippine Genome Center. It's a state-of-the-art facility here in the Philippines that can
that's
do
great.
risk sequencing from as simple as capillary sequencing to as highfalutin as PacBio or the Illumina platforms.
So have we done it? Have we
We
actually?
have the units. Fortunately for us, we don't have a positive sample yet in the Philippines.
I see.
So-
So I don't want to phrase it this way, no, but do we need somebody positive within the country
To
for you
confirm.
to?
Because
wow.
you need to
Okay.
run a sample to run it.
I see.
It's a platform. It's like you have the recipe to do it.
Okay.
You just need the samples to be sent to you. I think we've been having problems with shipping samples outside the country because some of the shipping companies are scared bringing potentially biohazardous respiratory samples.
Yes, you could imagine that the shipping companies would be quite cautious or just outright saying hell with that. Right? Because who wants to get involved with that? Anyway, there is another logistical issue of our testing, right? Transportation of this.
I see.
Thus, the need for us to develop our in-country mechanisms for rapid response and preparedness, and that includes advances in molecular diagnostics. And this,
Doc, in layman's terms, you're saying that we can test the novel coronavirus right now here in this country.
Right
we don't
now,
have to send it to Australia.
If there is a case,
if
that's
there's a
what you're
case,
saying.
yeah. But I think we just need to coordinate all our activities with the Department of Health. We are actually been discussing with them as an office, so that later on we can be part of the rapid response in terms of diagnostics. No? We're putting together now the RT-PCR kit that will hopefully be able to be ready in the next 21 days for everybody to have access to later on in their own laboratories and training modules for all that in case it's needed.
So you already developed a kit that can determine if someone is positive for nCoV.
Yeah, we're just putting it together right now in terms of the raw materials because you cannot develop a kit now and then make it ready for everybody, but you're only able to test 2 people. You must be able to scale it up several years back.
But for this new coronavirus, we have the capability already.
Of sequencing them.
Yeah.
I hope, I pray to God it will not enter the country.
Yes.
But if such event happens,
We can detect
support the
immediately.
Department of Health's effort to identify.
For
But
example,
does
you-
that
you will-
also
does it
mean?
take? How long does it take if you finally put the test together and you test somebody?
Most
how long does it take
likely, including
for us to find out?
sequencing and all those, logistics, at best scenario, 72 hours.
72 hours, best scenario. Best scenario. 72 hours to test for this. Yeah, that's a bit, right? And wow. So, are we getting closer to a pandemic? Of course we are. Well, we haven't stopped it. Like, look at these people. Like, they're as much as they're geared up, if they're sitting cross-paced with people on the table, I really don't think that they're protected enough from this. I really don't. It's this is a very vicious strain, and it's highly infectious. I don't, it is. It's scary, infectious. Wow, and that's just South Korea again, right? But Iran now says 6-person dead. And like Iran, like this just blew up there like in the last 4 days. And they got 4 dead people or 6 dead people already. They have some kind of, I don't know, maybe a mutated version or a stronger version or something, I don't know, but something's really wreaking havoc there, different than anywhere else, because they only got like 28 cases. 28 cases, and they got 6 deaths. That's crazy. Wow. So far, 28 cases have been confirmed in Iran, including at least 5 of the 6 people who died. Yeah. Virus being tested at least 4 different cities, including the capital of Tehran, where some pharmacies had already run out of mass hand sanitizer. And yeah, you could imagine all the fucking food's gonna run out of there pretty soon too. That's how fast it's gonna happen. It could be anywhere that has a... It could be anywhere right now. And it will. It's just gonna keep happening. Right? It will. I'm not trying to cause panic, but I'm trying to give you a fucking sense of urgency. I got my gear shit. I got my shit figured out. As best as I can anyway, as best as anybody could be. For my position right now, of course there's going to be other people that are in better positions to better prepare than I am. But for me, for what I can do, I've done all I can do. And I really believe that it could just happen anytime, and I'm not taking any chances. I don't trust it. I don't trust it one no. I don't trust it one bit. And they just, every news article, right? South Korea is the big hotspot, and Iran and Italy. Is the US the next big hotspot? Is Canada? Fuck, like where? It's only a matter of time. Because we haven't caught all the cases that people are infected by this. And it's showing very, very light symptoms mostly. But then it just pops up like I don't know what the hell happens. Like it's weird. This thing is, I don't trust it. I really don't. And I don't understand a lot of the science behind it, but I can make enough sense of it that I know that there's something not right. It's just not. It's rough, right? And we're all asking questions, and everybody's saying, well, don't be feeding into conspiracy theories. Well, it's not conspiracy theory as much as it is. It's just a informational session of, this is what's happening. And it's just popping up everywhere, randomly. Of course, it was just segregated to China at first. But you gotta realize, there's hundreds of thousands of people that got out of that country, if not millions, that traveled all around the world. And still, some probably are infected and still traveling around the world. Infecting people in the planes probably right as we speak. Guaranteed. Because this has spread to that level. We can't see this. But what we can see is that for about a month now, there's been cases all over the world for a month. We've only just started to pick them up, right? So for over a month, this thing's been stretching its legs. It's fucking wildfire right now everywhere. I'm just telling it how it is. Be very careful when you go out. When you're opening doors, when you're doing anything, right? When I go out, I do it when it's like there's nobody else. Like I do midnight grocery shopping. Nobody else is out, and I stock up on like whatever I can, right? And not only groceries, medications, medicines, toiletries. If factories start shutting down because of the economy, like it's gonna be a tight squeeze, and it's getting there. It really is. We're on our way. Unless somehow something miraculous happens that this just stops. But it doesn't seem like it's gonna stop. Really it seems like it's only picking up steam, especially outside of China. I remember when there was only a couple of cases outside China, and the World Health was worried then. There's only like 3 or 4 cases, and they said, well, it's worrisome, and and they said, well, it's not gonna last. We expect to see more cases. And they knew that. Of course, they knew that. And they tell us, well, it's we're still waiting on data, on more numbers. Figure this out. And regardless of, this virus doesn't care about our data, about our numbers, about our borders, about our names, about our race, about our country, about our fucking cities. It seems like it's gonna spread far and wide. And if not, it already has. We're just not seeing it because it's so latent. The time for infection, they're saying, can be upwards of 27 days. Yes, 27 days, and I'm not kidding. There actually is a study, and this isn't bullshit. They said 24 days, and that was a lot, but now there's another man from China who apparently somehow, I don't know how they figured this out, but apparently he didn't show symptoms for 27 days, but he was infected. And he was contagious. You understand? Somebody can be perfectly healthy and be contagious and just walking around doing everything like they're doing, going out, drinking, partying, socializing, working, and they're just infecting everybody around them. We can't see this. We really can't. And the worst of it is that it's still unknown at the highest levels, they say. They still say they know nothing about this. They're realizing, yes, they know it's human to human transmission now. Yes, they knew that for a while. Well, at first, they were saying, no, it's not human to human. But the hospitals were fucking overloaded. The videos were coming out of there showing hospitals jammed with people. People dying and dropping on the floors. Like, those are real videos. I don't give a shit. And the nurses and doctors and all the frontline staff and the Wuhan director of the hospital all died. All these people died. There's so many. Thousands, I bet you. I bet you thousands of frontline people died. Guaranteed. I'd say, like, it's a 15 million people, I think, in that city, according to Wiki. And there must have been at least a couple of thousand healthcare workers, for sure. And at first, they wouldn't have been notified or had any clue, right? Nobody would. This thing just creeped up out of nowhere. At the busiest time of year in the Chinese holiday. The busiest travel time. This thing stretched its legs far and wide for the last 3 months. It's been out of control for the last 2 months. But it's been traveling for probably about the last 3-4 months. We don't know where this thing is. And that's not to freak anybody out. That's the facts. We really can't tell. And you gotta take account or take that into account. Be aware of this. Because it can be, damn. Right? It's already exploding in other places. It's just a matter of time before it explodes in a community or a city or a town near you. Or near me. Near anybody. You know what? Most people are affected by this somehow or some way already. Everybody is. Did you ever try to order something off of Amazon lately? There's a major misinformation happening on our main information source, which is the World Health Organization. So let's just go into a little video about the World Health Organization. And this guy says it a lot better than I can, and he's got cool pictures, and he's got a backdrop and some fancy fucking towers back there. I don't know what's going on with that loop back there, but that looks fun. Let's watch it here and listen to what he's got to say.
Step 1, cover it up. They arrested whistleblowing doctors and journalists. And state-run media either kept numbers of infections impossibly low or didn't report on it at all. But after weeks of cover-up allowed the virus to spread across China and around the world, it became too big to cover up. So then, step 2, authoritarian crackdown. The Chinese regime has quarantined much of Hubei province where the outbreak began. It is the largest quarantine in human history, with tens of millions of people affected. And now, much of the rest of the country is under lockdown as well. Now you might be thinking a quarantine makes sense, right? Except on this ginormous scale, it doesn't actually work well. It's been authoritarian, heavy-handed, and often arbitrary, varying from one village or city to another. And this has made Chinese people lose trust in their government. Some people look for ways to escape the quarantine zones, and many don't report to authorities when they get sick because the consequences could include being put in a quarantine center next to hundreds of other sick people. In some cases, people have said that the quarantine centers don't have enough medical staff or even food. According to an expert at the University of Edinburgh, the way Chinese authorities have gone about it is quite dangerous because you actually start to erode that trust in the government. You want citizens coming forward and saying, "I feel unwell." The Chinese Communist Party is getting slammed with international criticism for how they handled the coronavirus. But guess who hasn't been criticizing them? The World Health Organization. In fact, the WHO has been praising how the Communist Party has handled it. This is the Director General of the WHO, Tedros Adhanom, meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping 3 weeks ago. At the time, Tedros said, "We appreciate the seriousness with which China is taking this outbreak, especially the commitment from top leadership and the transparency they have demonstrated." He also said, China is actually setting a new standard for outbreak response. Detaining activists who criticize Xi Jinping? That is a new standard for outbreak response. Anyway, Tedros lavished praise on China, despite the fact that it took nearly 2 weeks for the agency to get a go-ahead from China to send even an advance team, which arrived in Beijing on February 10th to discuss a joint mission. Tedros' praise of China has been so lavish, he's been featured repeatedly in Chinese state-run media, like this video from the People's Daily.
China took action massively at the epicenter, at the source of the outbreak. This is heroic. The actions of China is making us safer.
Maybe it's just me, but I don't feel a whole lot safer. And keep in mind, Tedros was praising China's authoritarian response to the virus. At the same time, he was criticizing other countries, especially the US, for travel bans to and from China.
There is no reason for measures that unnecessarily interfere with international travel and trade. We call on all countries to implement decisions that are evidence-based and consistent.
Good thing no one listened to him. Major world airports set up screening procedures for travelers who had recently been to China. Many airlines simply stopped flights to and from China. You know, it's not a great thing when people ignore the main global organization that's meant to advise everyone on health crises. Tedros also said in an interview that the quarantine of tens of millions of Chinese people is consistent with the WHO's regulations that call for the least intrusive measures possible and strong protection for freedom of movement and other human rights. Least intrusive? I would hate to see what the WHO actually considers intrusive. Incidentally, Tedros was a leader in Ethiopia's Tigray People's Liberation Front. That's a wing of the ruling Marxist-rooted Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front. He served the violently repressive regime as Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2012 to 2016 after a stint as Health Minister. So I would really hate to see what Tedros considers intrusive. Though he did say, "I think that human rights and so on should be respected." Yeah, human rights and so on, yada yada yada. But Tedros isn't the only one in the WHO who's praising the Chinese Communist Party's response to the coronavirus. Another WHO representative recently told a panel, "The people of China feel protected. We all need to take a step back and admire what's happened." Remember Peter Humphrey, the British private investigator who was jailed in China in 2013? He had been drugged, chained to a chair, locked in a cage, and then made to read out a statement written by the police in front of the cameras. The anchor who presented the footage, James Chow, is now a goodwill ambassador with the World Health Organization. This kind of praise for China has been going on for years. This statement from former WHO Director General Margaret Chan says, in the eyes of the world, China is increasingly seen as a model for development at many levels. China has lifted millions of its people out of poverty. And China is extremely fortunate to have a president who has made health the center of all government policies. And if the people don't want to be healthy, sometimes you just gotta force them. Incidentally, Beijing backed the appointment of Margaret Chan, a former director of health in Hong Kong, as WHO Director General from 2006 to 2017. But beyond just praise, the Chinese regime seems incredibly successful at getting the WHO to bow down to its claims over Taiwan. In case you don't know, Taiwan is a sovereign country with its own government, military, and currency. But the Chinese regime considers it part of China. And China has used its influence in the WHO to keep Taiwan out. Here's a speech given at a WHO meeting last year.
There is simply no principled basis why Taiwan should not be here. The only reason why it is not here now is because of the fact that the government in Beijing does not like the current administration in Taipei.
And yet, Taiwan is not allowed to join the World Health Organization as a member state, or even as an observer. And that puts Taiwan's population of 23 million people at risk. Taiwan's exclusion from the WHO leaves its population vulnerable during this crisis. A lack of direct and timely channels to the WHO have already resulted in inaccurate reporting of cases in Taiwan. Taiwan has repeatedly complained that China and the WHO aren't sharing information about the coronavirus outbreak with them. That's also what happened back in 2003 when the deadly SARS epidemic broke out in China. Besides putting 23 million Taiwanese lives at risk, that also affects the 50 million foreign travelers who pass through Taiwan's airports every year. They might assume the WHO is taking care of things. They would be wrong. In fact, the WHO can't even figure out what to call Taiwan. Last month, a WHO spokesman called it China Taiwan. And then a February 4th report flipped it and listed Taiwan China, but got the number of cases wrong, relying on data from Beijing, not Taipei. Now, the WHO doesn't even mention Taiwan. They recently called it Taipei and environs in a list of affected cities in China. Why does China have this kind of influence over the World Health Organization? It turns out the WHO is horribly corrupt. An audit revealed there has been a surge in internal corruption allegations across the whole of the organization, with the detection of multiple schemes aimed at defrauding large sums of money from the international body. That included an upsurge of internal complaints of corruption, fraud, and even sexual harassment from across the 7,000-strong organization, overwhelming an internal team of 4 full-time investigators and 2 consultants. And yet, the division of the WHO responsible for handling the coronavirus outbreak is so chronically underfunded it has repeatedly been found to pose a severe and unacceptable level of hazard. Great! So some people in the WHO are scamming loads of money and getting rich, while the coronavirus team is way underfunded. Maybe that's why the WHO delayed issuing a global emergency over the coronavirus, even though human-to-human transmission had already been confirmed. Or maybe it's because of China's role as a donor to the WHO. After this 2017 meeting between Tedros and high-level Chinese leaders, the WHO got a big new financial contribution from China. China also wants to build an $80 million headquarters for the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Guess where they want to build it? In Ethiopia. Wow, what a coincidence that that's Tedros' home country. The US is pretty sure it'll be used for spying. But China's importance to the WHO derives not so much as a current donor, but as a future source of funds and a partner with which to tackle the biggest global health problems. Well, China's got the money and 20% of the world's population. But is the ruling Communist Party really a good partner with which to tackle the biggest global health problems? A lot of health experts are furious at the WHO for their praise of China's response to the coronavirus and their delay in issuing a global emergency. According to Lawrence Gostin, a professor of global health law at Georgetown University, who also provides technical assistance to the WHO, we were deceived. Myself and other public health experts, based on what the World Health Organization and China were saying, reassured the public that this was not serious, that we could bring this under control. Allegations of corruption in the WHO are nothing new. In 2017, this expose from the Associated Press found that nearly half of the WHO's $2 billion budget went to first-class airfare and five-star hotels. The United States is the largest contributor. U.S. taxpayers fund about a quarter of the WHO's budget. And get this, that doesn't include costs covered by host countries seeking to curry favor, which are off WHO's books. And if you know anything about the Chinese Communist Party and how they buy influence, it's often by spending on lavish trips. Now, there's no evidence that's what happened with the WHO. I'm just a bit concerned, what with all the corruption and bootlicking, especially because the WHO relies on the funding and the cooperation of members to function, giving wealthy member states like China considerable influence. So I know right now you're probably pretty worried about getting accurate information about the coronavirus outbreak. Fear not. The WHO is also battling misinformation, working with Google to ensure that people get facts from the UN Health Agency first when they search for information about the virus. And that's why below this video on YouTube, a platform owned by Google, you'll see a link to the WHO, the most trustworthy source of coronavirus information. They put it there automatically. I can't remove it. Of course, if that's not enough to point your opinion in the correct direction, YouTube has also demonetized almost every video I and everyone else on YouTube has published about the coronavirus. To discourage us all from even talking about it outside the official channels. But what Google, YouTube, the WHO, and China didn't count on was the amazing support of what I call the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army. They're fans of the show who contribute on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Because of their financial support, I can make an episode about how China, the WHO, and Google don't have your best interests at heart when it comes to the coronavirus outbreak. They can demonetize China Uncensored all they want, and I'll just keep making episodes anyway. So as a thank you to members of the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army, I answer questions from them at the end of some of my episodes. Today's question comes from Tony Chapkowski. He asks, Tedros, really on the ball? China has huge investments in Ethiopia, where he hails from, and their airline is still flying to China. It makes Kenya, next door, very afraid. You know, I never even thought about that, but it turns out that yes, China is investing heavily in Ethiopia. And since Chinese investment is called debt trap diplomacy, it should come as no surprise that about half of all Ethiopia's debt belongs to China. The largest part of the debt was for the construction of the $4 billion Ethiopia-Djibouti Railway. The Export-Import Bank of China backed the project with $3.3 billion in loans. The railway has so far been crippled by light loads, electricity shortages, and disruptions due to protests. But hey, it connects Ethiopia to China's first overseas military base in Djibouti. So that's worth it, right? Chinese investment in Africa has been called a new colonialism. Could Chinese investment in Ethiopia affect Tedros' decision-making as director-in-chief of the WHO? Obviously, I can't say for sure. But let's just say I feel extra comforted by the WHO link YouTube is putting below this video. Take it away, Tedros.
The actions of China is making us safer.
Thanks for your question, Tony. And thank you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe.
Yeah, right? And what do you say to that? And it's true. It's all true. Wow. I don't even know. More news? Oh yeah, and coronavirus can now spread through poop. Well, we knew that at first. Well, there was reports at first, but yet they were unconfirmed. But now they say yes, the new coronavirus can in fact spread through feces. So they isolated the coronavirus from one patient, and they found that the coronavirus was viable, meaning that the stool samples may contaminate hands, food, water, etc. This is no joke. This thing is vicious. It's almost like it's designed. Do you think? I think. I really do think, and I believe it. I think it got out of that lab. And that's my opinion. That's not to cause any alarm, but let's just see what the state senator has to say about this also conspicuous level 4 biolaboratory that mysteriously, coincidentally, sits just kilometers away.
Story in the world, the Wuhan coronavirus. This coronavirus is a catastrophe on the scale of Chernobyl for China, but actually it's probably worse than Chernobyl, which was localized in its effect. The coronavirus could result in a global pandemic. While you were all sleeping overnight, the number of diagnosed cases in China increased by 30%. Now, let me be clear, that's not new cases, that is just newly admitted cases. It is probably several orders of magnitude higher than that. Also, while you were sleeping, China now has its entire border with Russia closed. 2,600 miles, Russia has closed that border. El Al has shut down travel between Israel and China. Air France has shut down travel between China and France. And that's in addition to all the other countries that have already shut down travel. From what we know so far, and there's still many unknowns, this virus could have both a long incubation period, as much as 14 days, and individuals could be contagious while asymptomatic, which was not the case with SARS in 2003. Furthermore, from some cases, it appears that the virus could be aerosolized, which means it doesn't require the kind of contact that you have with, say, a married couple kissing each other or a family living in close quarters in a hotel or apartment, but rather the distances we are all sitting apart right now. Yet China is still lying about all of this. They've been lying about it from the very beginning, and you don't need their history of lying about SARS in 2003, though it is relevant here. You just have to see what's happened over the last 2 months. We now know that the first case manifested no later than December 1, even though China didn't reveal it to the WHO until a month later on December 31st, when they continued to hide it from their own citizens. And they continued to say that it had been contained inside Wuhan. Today, it is in every single province in China. They also claimed for almost 2 months, until earlier this week, that it had originated in a seafood market in Wuhan, that locals had contracted it from animals in, say, bat soup or snake tartare. That is not the case. The Lancet published a study last weekend demonstrating that of the original 40 cases, 14 of them had no contact with the seafood market, including patient 0. As one epidemiologist said, that virus went into the seafood market before it came out of the seafood market. We still don't know where it originated. Could have been another seafood market. Could have been a farm. Could have been a food processing company. I would note that Wuhan also has China's only biosafety level 4 super laboratory that works with the world's most deadly pathogens, to include, yes, coronavirus. Now, look at China's own actions. They have quarantined 60 million people, 60 million, more than the entire population of our West Coast. They've shut down schools indefinitely. Classes canceled nationwide indefinitely. Hong Kong, a part of China, has basically shut down all travel from the mainland.
Yeah, so that's big, right? He supports it as well. A lot of people support it. Who wants to learn some science? Yay! There's a lot of speculation. There really is about these proteins. Let's go look at a cool video, and I showed this a couple of times before, but I'm going to show it again. Oh, actually, maybe we should start here. I kind of paused this here to kind of give you guys a Wuhan Center for Disease Control. Actually, and it says prevention, but it's kind of blurred out down there. So this here is a video of them collecting bats that contain this specific type of SARS or coronavirus, I guess. And are they doing research on it? Well, this proves that they are in fact doing research on bats, because they're collecting samples of bats and they're housing them at the Wuhan Center for Disease Control. Just meters, like actually 280 meters. They targeted it down on Google Maps or however they did it. But 280 meters from the seafood market is where this place is. And the research laboratory, the level 4 lab, that is I think it's 20 miles from the but anyways. And they're collecting bats. Alright, so let's just skip to the bats. This guy finds a bat with a tick on it, and he's super excited to find this live tick on a bat because it carries crazy infectious viruses, right? And like, what they do is they make bad viruses even worse in order to study them to make better vaccines. But they are dual purpose viruses, meaning they can be studied for good and get good purposes out of them, or they can be used for very malicious things. And even if, let's say, one escaped even by accident, would they be embarrassed or try to cover that up? Maybe. Yeah, and these are the ticks. And this is the Wuhan Center for Disease Control. Like, this video is sponsored by China. It's made by Chinese media. It's kind of like outlining their marvels, right? Look what we can do, kind of thing. But this video was made long ago. But they are taking samples of these bats, right? And look, there's a tick. You got a tick off the bat, a live tick. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. It's a great day. So like this here is like, you know, real special because he got like this tick that's living on the bat would be basically an intermediate host, right? So they can do some crazy things with that on a scientific, on a crazy like level. Okay, so this is the Wuhan Center for Disease Control. We're going to get out of that for a second. But that just goes to show you they are up to this stuff there, right? They are. They are. So, where are we? Let's look at some really cool biology. I'm going to try to streamline this into a video that everybody can kind of get some news, kind of get some science, kind of get some commentary from my end. And yeah, so right into this. I'm just going to let this run for actually this one or oh no, wait. Actually, we're going to go. I have another one queued up, I think. Somewhere. Yeah, that's not fun. Here it is. So we're gonna start right here, and we're gonna take note. This is University of California, San Francisco. This is you know, they're doing a 3D modeling of the coronavirus, but we're going to pick out some really important information here, and it will come into light later on. So here, I'm kind of queuing this back a little bit, but what he's showing basically now here is another coronavirus fusing with these other viruses, and it's showing how it's taking place. And we're going to compare this to the new coronavirus and how it differentiates and the differences between how it infects us and why that's so important and what makes it actually ridiculously infectious and fucking the things that nightmares are made of, honestly. So, not to freak anybody out, but just, you know, it is just the way it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Genome can be transferred into a cell. Let's look at one more virus that uses the same strategy of spike molecules on the surface. We'll look at HIV virus. So here are a half dozen HIV virus particles. One thing you'll notice difference, we see the membrane around the virus. It's spherical. Again, I'm cutting through it, and I can sort of slice in and out through the virus. And one thing we'll notice is that there are many fewer spikes. That influenza virus and the coronavirus were covered with the spikes. HIV virus is a little bit different. It only has tens of spikes. For instance, here's one, this little stub sticking out.
Now, that's very important because this is a coronavirus. This specific virus is going around, right? Has all kinds of spikes on it. This is the HIV virus. It only has like just tens of spikes, right? Obviously, this has less because it's more infectious. One of these little spikes gets you, it's going to infect you just because of the nature of the way that it's communicating with the cells. So it doesn't need to be covered with it. But the coronaviruses do need to be covered with it because they don't communicate as well with our cells. So they need more spikes to enhance their probability of infecting a cell. The coronavirus currently going around, the Wuhan coronavirus, is using, and yes, it is using, glycoproteins that are characteristically exactly the same as the communication ones on HIV. And that's why he's showing this. Of all the viruses he could pick to compare, right? He picks HIV. Why? Because he's pointing to the fact that, hey, it actually does. And you'll notice that how HIV infects, you'll notice that they're in a barrier. They're in a barrier of a cell. So what they're doing is it goes into your cell and undetected, it takes over the inside of your cell and starts replicating on the inside of your cell. And then your cell bursts open and millions of these other cells go out and infect other cells, and that exact same process happens again and again. Because they're being the other way, the cells, yeah, they replicate on the outside. These ones here are being, it's a big difference, and that's very important. So I'll let him continue, and then we'll skip right to another very important part where he is defining the differences between the SARS virus and this new coronavirus.
Okay, so we're going to look at these spike molecules. They're used by the virus to recognize your cells and to enter your human cells in your lungs, the coronaviruses in your lungs. We're going to look specifically at the spikes on coronaviruses.
And he doubled back there and said that a few times because do you know why? Coronaviruses use the receptors in our lungs, and that's why we get the pneumonia, right? It's a respiratory. I think it's a lower respiratory disease, but this new one is an upper and lower respiratory disease. It's weird, but also he's saying that and singling this out because coronaviruses only really mostly infect us through our lungs. But this here specific virus, this new one, is using our ACE2 receptors, which is this as the same way as HIV infects us, which is very curious as to how coronaviruses just suddenly got the exact same communication methods as HIV on coronavirus cells. It's not the HIV virus, it's just the little communication tips. These little tiny tips on here that infect you. And coronaviruses are covered in these. So of course, it's just even worse. Because, HIV only needs a couple of these to be infectious. And, it does it well because it's very infectious. It once it gets you, right? It doesn't need a whole bunch of spikes. It's evolved like that through evolution. Coronaviruses need more spikes to be more infectious because they're not that infectious, really. But, okay, I don't know if I can explain that. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but yeah. Let's see where we're at. We're going to go right to the next one where he's differentiating the spikes. Let's go back here.
Exposes the mechanism which allows it to fuse half with the ACE2 on you a little bit. The bottom half I colored light colors, light red and correct. Look.
Okay, yeah, we'll start here. And he's going to compare the differences. And why does this matter? Why is it? Because the way this binds to our cells pretty well proves that this isn't something that is naturally characteristic of this type of virus, the way that it's using our cells to infect us. So, strange days are coming, people.
Location where it sticks. Okay, so here's the actually from the electron microscopy that shows the ACE2 in brown. Here's the spike, it's flipped up. When it's attached to the ACE2, what they see in the electron microscope is the thing is even more flexible. So let's see. There we go. Let me see if I give you a better angle that shows this motion. Okay, so the thing can swing in and out. And what they observe next is that half of this spike just falls off when the ACE2 attaches. This is in SARS. Okay, what the top half falls off. And here I changed the color scheme on you a little bit. The bottom half I colored light colors, light red and light blue, and this light green kind of looks gray. Each of these three copies of the protein is cut at a certain point, and I marked it in red where it's cut. A protease, another molecule, makes a cut right here, and that's totally critical. If the cut's not made, then the virus can't infect. Okay, so each of the three ones has a cutting point, and what they observe is this green copy, the top half with the ACE2 floats away, and then the red and the blue, they don't have ACE2, only one of them. These become unstable. They no longer stay attached, and they float away, and we're left with just this bottom light-colored portion of the spike. And this bottom portion in the middle exposes the mechanism which allows it to fuse with the human cell.
I know it's a lot of science, right? It's a little bit, but it's important if you want to know the facts behind this. If you want to make your own conclusions, there's scientific data is out there, right? This isn't something that I'm just trying to push into you for no apparent reason at all. There is some kind of a or method to the madness, right?
Okay, is this what's going on in Wuhan coronavirus? So everything I'm showing you is for SARS. We don't have the structures for Wuhan coronavirus, but one thing we can do is we can look at the difference between this SARS virus and Wuhan virus, because we know the chemical structure of the Wuhan virus from its genetic code. So let me color the differences between the two. Let's see, I have a little button I made to do that. There we go. So I colored every part of this green molecule, 1/3 of the spike, orange if it was different between the Wuhan and the SARS virus. So you see, it looks like a lot of orange. It's only about 25%. It's about 75% identical, which is a high amount of identity. When two proteins in your body are 75% identical, generally they function nearly exactly the same. Okay, but it would be what we'd really want to look at here is sort of the really important part here where it's attaching to this ACE2 molecule. We see a lot of orange at the interface between the two. And that would make me suspect that this isn't quite right. Wuhan virus. SARS virus and Wuhan virus are probably a bit different here.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the scientific facts. And I know you might not understand that, and I don't understand it either, to be honest, the full length or the full gravity of it scientifically. But basically, they have modified this. They modified it. It has to be modified. It has to be. It has to be. These AC2 receptors, these converting enzymes, and this specific one is gonna look like it controls the ACE2 receptor directly controls cardiac function and is expressed predominantly in vascular endothelial cells and heart and kidneys. Okay, so why does that matter where it's expressed? Because this here is, we're not getting this in the lungs like the other ones that we used to get. Right? This one here is attacking us different. It's attacking us like the same way HIV would. It infects us with the same characteristic communication methods as HIV. It's not HIV, but whatever else this is, who knows? But it's not natural. It didn't come out of nature. I'm sorry. It didn't. And if it did come out of nature, it's a huge jump on an evolutionary timeline. We know nature follows a steady curve. We know that. Right? It's basic science. And yes, sometimes nature does take a veer, but not this much. No. And this report comes out and says some things, glycoprotein, but what this report I found that had you know, they made a big mistake on. They thought it used these CD4 receptors, right? They were sure of it. But in fact, this initial report wasn't really in depth, but it did conclude that for sure that these proteins where this interaction and this communication were taking place, just like we watched in the last video, where the bonding points are. You know, there's something going on there. And these guys thought it was the CD4 receptors right here. GP120 plays a crucial role in recognizing host cell by binding the primary receptor to the CD4. Induces structural rearrangements in the protein and also involves the co-receptors CXCR4 or CCR5. And they thought it was the CD4 cells binding to it. But in fact, no, it was not. Let's see.
And in fact, if I only had this evidence, I would probably think that Wuhan virus wasn't even using this ACE2.
That's big information. Because what we're seeing is that this thing is very elusive. Extremely sneaky. I mean, like, it's a ninja inside our body. Literally. And not only that, it's a ninja outside of our body. Because we can't see this thing coming. And that's just the facts.
Okay, because there are so many differences right there. But experiments that were done in the last few weeks already confirmed that Wuhan virus indeed is using ACE2.
They didn't know that back then. You know, this just came out. Right? So, and then the last couple of weeks, so they were like, well, you know, it's using the CD4 as the primary receptor. Right? And they're like, well, what the hell? But they were onto something when they said the proteins were matching the HIV spike proteins, glycoprotein 120. And they did some heavy modifications to this. And they did it in such a way that it's targeting our specific cells in a way that it can't be detected very easily. That's why people are getting better. That's why people are showing up. It's going away. This thing never goes away. It doesn't. Sorry to reveal that. It gets you one way or the other when you get it. And everybody's having different effects from it. I'm telling you, it's a fucking nightmare. It is, and I'm telling you, with no sugarcoating. I don't do well with that shit. I just tell it how it is.
Okay. But we can expect that our model based on SARS is going to be a little bit off because there are a lot of differences in the critical location where it binds. All right, I want to show you one last thing, and that is what can your immune system do to fend off this virus?
Actually, we're not going to watch that. We will watch this little animation though, which is pretty cool, and it is an exact representation of what's happening on a very small level inside our bodies right at this moment. Ever since we've been a thought, it's probably started happening. So let's just check this out. It's pretty cool.
And so what I'm about to show you is an accurate representation of the actual DNA replication machine that's occurring right now inside your body, at least 2002 biology. So DNA is entering the production line from the left-hand side, and it hits this collection, this miniature biochemical machines that are pulling apart the DNA strand and making an exact copy. So DNA comes in and hits this blue donut-shaped structure, and it's ripped apart into its two strands. One strand can be copied directly, and it can be seen spooling off down to the bottom there. But things aren't so simple for the other strand because it must be copied backwards. So it's thrown out repeatedly in these loops and copied one section at a time, creating 2 new DNA molecules. Now, you have billions of this machine right now whirring away inside you, copying your DNA with exquisite fidelity. It's an accurate representation, and it's pretty much at the correct speed for what it's occurring inside you. But I've left out error correction and a bunch of other things. This was work from a number of years ago. Thank you. This is work from a number of years ago, but what I want to show you next is updated science. It's updated technology. So again, we begin with DNA, and it's jiggling and wiggling there because of the surrounding soup of molecules, which I've stripped away so you can see something. DNA is about 2 nanometers across, which is really quite tiny. But in each one of your cells, each strand of DNA is about 30 to 40 million nanometers long. So to keep the DNA organized, to regulate access to the genetic code, it's wrapped around these purple proteins. I've labeled them purple here. It's packaged up and bundled up. All of its field of view is a single strand of DNA. This huge package of DNA is called a chromosome. And we'll come back to chromosomes in a minute. We're pulling out, we're zooming out through a nuclear pore, which is sort of the gateway to this compartment that holds all the DNA called the nucleus. All of this field of view is about a semester's worth of biology, and I've got 7 minutes, so we're not going to be able to do that today. No, I'm being told no. This is the way a living cell looks down a light microscope, and it's been filmed under time-lapse, which is why you can see it moving. The nuclear envelope breaks down. These sausage-shaped things are the chromosomes, and we'll focus on them. They go through this very striking motion that is focused on these little red spots. When the cell feels it's ready to go, it rips apart the chromosome. One set of DNA goes to one side, the other side gets the other set of DNA, identical copies of DNA, and then the cell splits down the middle. And again, you have billions of cells undergoing this process right now inside of you. Now we're going to rewind and just focus on the chromosomes and look at its structure and describe it. So again, here we are at that equator moment. The chromosomes line up, and if we isolate just one chromosome, we're going to pull it out and have a look at its structure. So this is one of the biggest molecular structures that you have, at least as far as we've discovered so far, inside of us. So this is a single chromosome, and you have 2 strands of DNA in each chromosome. One is bundled up into one sausage. The other strand is bundled up into the other sausage. These things that look like whiskers that are sticking out from either side are the dynamic scaffolding of the cell. They're called microtubules, but the name's not so important. But what we're going to focus on is this red region. I've labeled it red here, and it's the interface between the dynamic scaffolding and the chromosomes. It is obviously central to the movement of the chromosomes. We have no idea really, as to how it's achieving that movement. We've been studying this thing called the kinetochore for over 100 years with intense study, and we're still just beginning to discover what it's all about. It is made up of about 200 different types of proteins, thousands of proteins in total. It is a signal broadcasting system. It broadcasts through chemical signals, telling the rest of the cell when it's ready, when it feels that everything is aligned and ready to go for the separation of the chromosomes. It is able to couple onto the growing and shrinking microtubules. It's transiently, it's involved with the growing of the microtubules, and it's able to transiently couple onto them. It's also a tension sensing system. It's able to feel when the cell is ready, when the chromosome is correctly positioned. It's turning green here because it feels that everything is just right. And you'll see that there's one little last bit that's still remaining red. And it's walked away down the microtubules. That is the signal broadcasting system sending out the stop signal, and it's walked away. I mean, it's that mechanical. It's molecular clockwork. This is how you work at the molecular scale. So with a little bit of molecular eye candy, we've got kinesins, which are the orange ones. They're little molecular courier molecules walking one way. And here are the dynein. They're carrying that broadcasting system, and they've got their long legs so they can step around obstacles and so on. So again, this is all derived accurately from the science. The problem is we can't show it to you any other way. Exploring at the frontier of science, at the frontier of human understanding, is mind-blowing. Discovering this stuff is certainly a pleasurable incentive to work in science. But most medical researchers,
So yeah, that's pretty cool, right? It's just a little visual representation of what's going on, right? And the science Science is here to prove it, right? I wish I could give it to you in a better way, but we don't have a better way. We don't, or at least I don't, at the moment. This thing didn't come out of nature, and regardless, if it did come out of nature, if it didn't, fact is, it's coming. Alright? Regardless of what it is. But it's nice to know, like, get a heads up of what it possibly could be as well. Alright? It possibly could be something designed, in fact, and we don't know what it's going to do. Alright? When it's out in the open. And this thing is obviously mutating or something. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on. But, it's jumping quick. It's jumping quick, and like it could be any moment, anywhere. It really could. South Korea's got their hands full, but they're doing a fantastic job at reporting the numbers. They really are. They're doing as best as they can. There's a detailed, there's a detailed spreadsheet on it somewhere. Yeah, let's check out another little actually no, I'm not gonna look at that right now. Wow, it's a lot, right? Let's check out some news. Wow, it's just so much. I don't even know. Wow. It's a lot, right? Yeah. And they're in fact, these guys are actually in fact carrying out tests on bats. So, they gotta be modifying this stuff. Right? Of course they are. Could have just been an accident and they're just, whatever, but regardless. This thing is fucking epic. And seriously, it is. It's unstoppable. We've never seen anything so contagious as this, ever. And naysayers can say one thing. Doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter what you're gonna try to do. It's still coming. Like, you can do backflips and fucking cartwheels and it doesn't matter. It's not gonna stop it. Right? And I'm just being straight up with you. You gotta be serious about this right now. Like Iran, I don't know, and China and South Korea, like Iran only has, they only got like 20 some cases, but they got like 6 deaths. Oh, where the hell is that? Italy, yeah, like holy shit. These places are just going up. Right, and seriously, it could happen anywhere, at any moment. All it takes is somebody to test positive with this from, like, let's say, like a church setting, right? And then they go trace it back to the church like they did in South Korea. That's as easy as it is. And then all of a sudden you got an outbreak on your hands. And it can happen at any fucking moment right now. I am not bullshitting you. It's just it's gonna pop up like we're not gonna have any warning. We really don't. We have an idea that it's here, and that should be enough to put people's fucking alert up to, at least prepare for this. And if you don't do that, well, that's your own fault. Nobody's gonna be blamed but yourself. Like, oh my god, there's big things happening. Like, and South Korea, Israel just abandoned their citizens there. There's nine citizens from Israel, and South Korea asked them to pay for, you know, their medical and their food and all that kind of stuff, and the country just bailed on them. They said, no, you deal with it. Like, it's breaking down at the most, and not only the virus, this thing's going to cause tensions that you would not believe, and it already is causing tensions at the highest levels. And there's people who have way too much power that any one person should have, especially in some countries, right? Goddamn straight. This thing starts wiping out a bunch of people. Who's to say somebody's just not like, fuck it, and just starts launching everything they got at, like, whatever person's pissing them off. Like, really? I don't know. Like, fuck. It is big. It is that big. It really is that big. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Planning, guidance, and checklists. Pandemic flu checklist. Well, let's just see what we should do in a pandemic according to the CDC. Before a pandemic, you should plan. Work with your local health department on planning efforts. Create or update your pandemic flu and emergency communication plans. Share your plans with staff. Strategize on how you would increase space or limit contact between staff, if possible, for example, working at home. Establish flexible leave policies. Develop a monitoring system to track staff absences due to the flu. So, during a pandemic, take action. Stay informed about the local flu situation. Well, yeah, I'm trying to keep you up to date. Put your plans and policies and strategies in action. Yes, I did that. Can't make anybody else do anything. Update staff, customers, and supplies with information on how your business is responding. Yeah, okay, great. This is more for businesses, I guess. But encourage, yeah. Anyway, we can see that, you know, the CDC's, you know, it's not very helpful information, really. Like, what the hell? I guess it's just for, you know, employers, but... Oh, here's the other one. Pandemic flu. Staying home when you are sick. Keeping away from others who are sick. Limiting face-to-face contact with others. Well, we all know that this is spreading more viciously than just regular flu. So, are they going to tell us? Like they're not telling us. Why would they tell us? They don't want to panic people. They already told us that they don't want to panic the public. They don't. And they're not going to tell us. It'll just be an outbreak situation all of a sudden, and they'll just come in and they'll quarantine just like every other place. You know, and then eventually it's just going to get so out of hand globally everywhere that it will eventually just, everything will just shit the fucking bed. Because how are we going to stop it? How? Anybody got any ideas? Can we throw rocks at it or something? It's not going to stop. And that's my point. So you gotta get your shit together. Get it together. Get all your shit, put it in a bag, get it together, and get your shit together in a bag. Let's look at some unrealistic numbers. Oh, but you know what? This yellow line's starting to rise. Oh my fuck, there's 2,000 cases worldwide now. Oh, she's fucked, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry about the news. But you can't track that many people. You can't. You can't track that many people that were infected and who their contacts were and who they may have infected and who they may have infected and who they may... No. The legwork on that just becomes fucking tireless. You can't. They're already got their hands full at every level. They can't support this. Logistically, they can't. Please, listen to me. For fuck's sakes. I'm not kidding when I'm fucking saying this. Like, it's gonna get ugly. When? Probably sooner than later. She's tanking everywheres. Everywheres. Let's just actually revise this. Apple lost over $100 billion. Yes. 999 million plus, like, you know, a few hundred more million. Because they took a big smash. They can't make their phones. Samsung can't make their phones. Like, I don't give a fuck. Argue with me. Yeah, it's not good. And if this Dow goes below, if that, you know, if this number right here drops below 2%, which it will, look at that spike. Oh, fuck, that just gone in the tank. And that's just the way it is. Just the way it is. If it hits below 2%, it doesn't matter. The whole world's gone into recession. The whole world. It's already almost at 1%. So how long is it going to take to get 2%? 2-3 days, 2-3 weeks. Doesn't matter. Something's going to crash first. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. But something will definitely go down first. Probably the healthcare systems. Because that's how it happened in China. Right? The hospitals got overcrowded. So that's your cue. If you see overcrowded hospitals in your area, that's your fucking cue to go. You see an unusual amount of ambulances or something, you know, yeah, might be your clue. But, you know, you might not even get a clue. You know, you might not even be paying attention to that stuff. Next thing you know, they just come in and lock down your city or your town or wherever. And of course, you're going to be terrified to go outside. So you'll want to get supplies before you get terrified before you go outside. Don't get caught in the rat race either, because there's going to be a lot of fucking people running for supplies at the same time. What happened in China? Take some lessons from China. Seriously, it might not be crazy in your spot right now. It might not even be anywhere near you. But it's going to be. Just give it time. And it's not to say that it already isn't. Almost 5 million people got out of Wuhan before they closed it down. But not to say all those people went, you know, outside of China. But, you know, a lot of people did get outside of China. A lot more than's being reported, even on a global level right now. Like, 2,000 people would have got out to China in like a couple of hours. Really. You know, a couple of hundred people on a plane, a couple of planes leaving every couple of hours. Right. Lots of people got out. Lots of people that were infected got out. It's only logical. Viruses mutate very quickly. Yes, they do. And humans help move viruses evolve quicker. Yep, we do. It's a lot. It's a lot. Can you handle it? Can I handle it? That's the questions. It's a lot. Yep. I don't even know what a lot of this science means, but I know enough that it's not. It's not adding up. Like, what the hell? Yep. Yep. I don't even know what to say anymore, except like, holy fuck. Take my advice. What little people are listening. God damn it, do something. Stop listening to me and go get some groceries. Fox. Oh my god. It really, oh, the red dots are just getting more plentiful. Like it's like a bad case of like chicken pox or something. Except it's like on the planet and it's like, you know. Oh, look at Los Angeles. They got a big outbreak going there, boys. I'd say United States we're going to be the next ones to see an outbreak, unfortunately. I really do. Because, you know, I think they're actually having an outbreak now. They're just trying to cover it up. Not cover it up, but just, they're not trying to freak everybody out. They're trying, but that, you can't. You're just going to lose the respect and trust of your people. You're not honest with them. And the CDC's being they're being really cagey. They're being super cagey right now. I don't know. Oh, you know, and then, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. Yep. Reported to have an active biological weapons program since the 1980s. You know, I guess. Damn it. And you know what? China's got some goddamn artillery. Intercontinental ballistic missiles. 14,000 to 15,000 kilometer range. They apparently have 20 ICBMs, 13,000 plus kilometer range. 24 road mobiles. Yeah. They got some heat. Chinese nuclear forces. Range. Warhead developed in 1971, 1980, 81, 91, 2006, 7 and 9, 2008 and 10, 1965, 1990. Wow. Even, like, you know, she could be shit show level event, ladies and gentlemen. Not to say that has anything to do with it, but people getting antsy in their pantsy in the highest levels and they got itchy trigger fingers probably isn't going to be beneficial to anyone. And you know what? They don't look at us like people. They don't. From the highest levels? Fuck no. We're maggots to them. Trust me. We really are. As long as they're getting big pay, don't give a fuck. I promise you. And you're sadly mistaken if you think otherwise. And they don't care about, you know, the little people. They don't. Wow. A fucking shit show. Oh my. China's ability to control rapidly spreading coronavirus epidemic is under further strain amid fears that key tests used to confirm new cases is failing to catch large numbers of people with the disease. Problems with the so-called nucleic acid test is wildly... Yeah. We all know the nucleic acid tests are fucking not the great. Yeah. Things are going south. And how fast, we don't know, but they're going south. They're going south pretty goddamn fast in other places of the world. You can guarantee that, right? And I don't know what to say. Just be prepared. Holy hell. She's coming, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers and sisters. Sisters from other misters. It's happening. Quite confident to say that we are going to have our hands full very shortly. Fuck me. Yeah. Let's finish it off with some people not wearing their masks in China. And you know, you can finish. You can think what you want about this video, but and we know it's real because everyone's wearing masks, including the officers. Right? So just take that in consideration. These are legit.
那隔离着，我刚跟你说明白了，河间市医院。少钱？隔离15天啊，少主。给我。先生们，网贷了，你先过不来。走。你先两个出去。出这问题，我这边出这问题，不是，出这个问题。我一个事情，这啥东西？这气刀，这气刀。查给干啊！
Yeah, and those are just, you know, they're not the greatest images coming out of there. But that's what's happening. And a lot of these people are being segregated and treated like this because they came from a place that, you know, it's not their hometown or their home city, and people are finding out they're there and accusing them of bringing the disease, and people are just in a panic mode, and it's just a complete breakdown of social society. You know, it was already a communist country that was, you know, kind of, you know, shifty at the best of times. But, you know, unfortunately now under these circumstances, people are just breaking, and it's causing some very horrific things to happen, of course. So, with that being said, I will keep you up to date. I will try to keep you in the loop of everything that is going on and just ramble about things for a little while. Because it's very important. We need to all be paying attention to this. We really do. Because unfortunately, it really is now more than just in China. And, you know, unfortunately, things are gonna get really ugly. I don't know how to say it any other way. So just take care and get your shit together. Good night and good morning and good afternoon wherever you're at. I guess it's 4:20 somewhere. Peace.